Hey guys, I just used a box pattern there and I played some chords. I want you to tell me in the comments section if you know what key that was I was playing in. And just leave me a comment if you think you know. This was an old school classic style riff. Just some old school stuff. But if you can see what key that is, I'd really like to know if you know what it is. Today's lesson is another lesson in this theory series, lesson number 5. We're getting deeper into the music theory. And today's lesson, I'm trying to keep them as simple as I can. I want everything to be easy for you guys to understand. We don't need to learn things that aren't necessarily applying to the guitar. So we try to keep everything applicable to the guitar. And so in this lesson, I'm going to go over a few different things. Nothing is going to be too crazy. Just some basic explanation of some things you may or may not already know. And if you know them, good, great. But if you don't, then I hope this lesson serves you well. I'm going to go over some basics regarding the circle of fifths because there's a lot of information on it, and I want to cover the important stuff with you. So maybe some of you know some things about it, maybe some of you just don't. I'm just going to point out a few things theoretically for us, in case you guys don't already know some of these things that I'm going to point out. And I'm going to use this piece of paper, the circle of fifths. I'm going to highlight a few things for you. Or I'm going to actually make some things known to you, as I should say. Now, I'm going to explain to you how the circle of fifths works. If you guys know how it works, well, then I'm going to ask you this question. If you already know what it is, how do you use it? And how do you use it? That's what I'm going to ask you. If you know what it is, some of you are going, I know what circle of fifths is. I don't need this video. Great, turn it off. But for those of you that want to watch, let me ask you this. For those of you who do know what the circle of fifths is, a couple questions. Why do you know it? And how do you use it? Tell me in the comments, how do you use it? And if you think you know, how do you use it? Because I'm going to show you some ways to use it. Now, there's more than one way to use it. There's a lot of ways. If you know some other ways, by all means, leave a comment. We're here to help each other, right? I'm not better than you. No one's better than anyone. We're all on the same path. Just some of us are farther along. Some of us have been walking that path a little longer than others. I'm on some new paths. This is one of my old paths. We're all on new paths and old paths. We help each other out. And that's one of the things I like about the viewers of this channel is we all help each other out. No one here is better than anyone else. We are all equals. It's just that we have some knowledge we can share with other people. And that's all I'm trying to do is share some knowledge that I've gained over the years with you. And I hope one day maybe you do the same and you can help somebody else out because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help those who can't help themselves or those who need help. And we all need help in some way, shape, or form. So I applaud you guys, and I appreciate all the help you give each other and the kind comments you guys leave. I notice there isn't too much negativity on there, and that's really, really nice to see that it's a very nice community here, and I thank you guys for that, and I want to continue to help you as best as I can. So let's go over some basics with this circle of fifths, just some things you may or may not know. Here is my circle of fifths. You can Google this and get it off the internet anywhere you want, anywhere on the internet. I got mine there. So basically, this is how it works. Almost everything on here is counted in fives. Almost, because not everything is. There's something on here that is not counted in fives. There is something on this paper counted in sixes. And that would be the name of the relative minor of each key. There are 12 notes in music, so there's going to be 12 keys on here, one for each note. Now, looking at this paper, we can see, let's just discuss why we call it the circle of fifths. That is because majority of the information is counted using the number 5 to get to the next answer. And if we look at the key of C up top, we notice that moving over to G would be 5 letters over from C would be the G. So we can see now that these key names are 5 over from each other. Also, if you've built your keys from the prior videos, you'll notice that the next key name is the 5th note of the prior chord, the chord name of the prior letter. So the chord name of C has its 5th letter as G. So when you build your C chord, you notice, wow, it's just the G note when I build my C chord. And then when you build your G chord, you would say, wow, that's just the D note that I get when I build my G chord, and the G, B, D, D is the 5. So if you've already built your key of C major, then all you have to do is go to the 5th letter of each one of those chords and know that that's the next letter of the key when you look at this chart. So you see C, you go down to the C chord and recognize the last letter is G, and you do this for every chord, right down from the G, then the D. You use this chart to find the last one. You don't go across the key of C, but you go to this G, the chart here, you see the G, so you go back to your key of C, you look at the G chord, you recognize that the fifth is D, and you can now tell that every single letter you see on the circle of fifths has its power chord 5 note as the next key name. And that's what I'm trying to point out. So now that we see that these key names just go around in fives, counting with our thumb, again, C, D, E, F, G. If you use your thumb, as I've stated in the past, you'll memorize things a lot easier and a lot quicker, and it's already challenging enough to learn everything with the guitar. So it's just my opinion that we should give ourselves every single advantage we can to make anything easier. And who said that only kids can count on their hands, right? If you're an adult and you're learning this, if you're 30, 40, 50 years old, 55, trying to learn this stuff, well, we all know the clock is ticking. And we only have so much time on earth. Don't you want to spend as much time enjoying the guitar as you can as opposed to struggling with the guitar? So it's just simple things that make it easier, okay? That's all we're trying to do, is make things easy. So that's all about. Now we look at the key names. They are 6 over. The minor names, they're minor names of these keys are 6 letters over from the major name when you include the first letter of the major key. So beginning on the C, C, D, E, F, G, A. We can see that A is 6. So we now know that all these minor names are 6 letters up from their major root. That's where we get the minor name of any key. So when you build out your major scale patterns on paper and you're going across the page like we learned in the other videos, you just go to number 6 and you circle that 6th letter and it will show you the minor name of that key. Now let's begin with these accidentals. You have to build the first key of G using the major scale pattern to know that you get an F sharp note in that key. And if you look at this staff note up here, that F sharp note is on the top line of F. Now we've all American students have learned their music staff in elementary school. So I'm going to assume that all the American kids watching this, or kids that were born in America and educated in America, because I know some of you have moved out of the country. I know some of you are now living in Germany and some other countries that you're moved to. But you learned this in America, so you should know your staff. For those of you that don't know your staff, Google it, because the explanation is much shorter and simpler than what I could ever give you. And I want you to learn things simply and easily. So putting my own ego aside, I'm not going to teach you that because I believe it's better taught to just grab the paper and have them explain to you what it is. And in a matter of minutes, you can understand your staff, instead of me running in circles and messing it all up for you. I don't want to make it any more confusing for you. So just Google this picture of the explanation of staff music and you'll see it, and it takes 5 minutes to understand it. It's just really not hard at all. And they teach the kids in 2nd grade. So just imagine if you're 30, 40, 50 years old, you'll pick it up in a matter of minutes. A commercial break and you'll have it down. Now, we see the first key of G has an F sharp because that sharp note is on the F line, indicating that there's one sharp in this key, and it is F because the sharp is through the F line. When you look at this key of D, and we see that we drag the F sharp down with us to the next key, and then we add one more sharp. And then next sharp is on the C line, so that's a C sharp there. And if you look at the F sharp and you count 5 over from it, just like your F power chord, you will get a C note. And that is why after the F sharp in the key of D, we see the C sharp, because the sharps also go around in groups of 5. So now if you wanted to, you could pause this video and just figure out what all the sharps are for the keys to see if you understand what they all are. If you think you understand what they are, then you can stop it and try to get them all. They're already written, so all you got to do is see if what you wrote is correct. But we're going to move on right now. Looking at the key of A major, we see 3 sharps. We see an F, C, and a G. Looking at the key of E major, we have 4 sharps. We drag over the F, C, and the G. 5 over from G is D. And we look at the B, it's the same thing in B major. We drag over the F, C, and the G, and the D, F, C, G, D. We bring over the A. And the same thing for the key of F major, F sharp major rather. We have 6 sharps, F, C, G, D, A, and E sharp, which is really an F. And then we look at the key of C sharp major, and we have all 7 sharps. C sharp major can also be called D flat minor. Some places will call it Well, it depends on what key. I guess what in jazz music you're going to call it more like you'll use it as the key of D flat. But you notice in guitar land and popular music for guitar, we don't see this key of C sharp a lot. So there's 12 keys here, and 6 of them are really guitar friendly keys. And those 6 you will see in guitar music, popular music played on guitar, which is generally, but not always, it's generally the keys of C, G, D, A, E, and the key of F. So generally speaking, what I do with my circle of fifths is, because you want to study the keys you're really going to play in, I do something like this just to let myself, when I was learning it, and I suggest you might want to do this too. Just make an axis line through your circle of fifths, because really you're going to study the top half. You're not really going to ever see songs in the bottom halves. You might see some jazz stuff there occasionally. So for you jazz guys, you'll probably want to study all 12 keys. But for guys that are playing anything except for jazz, you'll need 6 of the 12. And occasionally, once in a blue moon, you see something in B flat major. Just do, and you might see something in B major once in a while. I don't even know about that, but you'll see B flat once in a while. I can't really honestly say I've seen B a whole lot. If I've seen it once, maybe that's about it. But you'll see stuff in G minor once in a while because it's a dark key for drop D guys. And you can see stuff in C minor once in a while. Randy Rhoads played parallel keys, and once in a while he'd play C minor in some of those freakier songs he did. Stuff with the with uniques. Whenever you see something with a unique sound that just most bands are not sounding like, you need to go look for the odd keys or odd chords and odd scales because that's what guys are leaning towards. Stuff that's not used every day. So, like, for example, when you see, like, Diary of a Madman and you go listen to this Randy Rhoads song, it is not something you hear every day. The music melodies he created in that song are custom to the chords and scales he chose, and he used a lot of different chords, keys, and scales. So he didn't always stay to the common stuff, and he used these scales, keys, and chords in unique ways that most players still today don't use them, because he is the proof. He is just one of many people to prove that the better you know your music theory, the more creative you can get with the music. So even if you're not a fan of Randy Rhoads, just listen to the creativity that he created, and that uniqueness that he had that made him sound like no one else. Partly is because he knew how to use keys in ways a lot of people didn't. So he had more experience with using the theory, breaking the rules, making new rules, so to speak, just doing whatever he wanted to do and made it work. So he understood the music theory at a much higher level than a lot of people. That's why I'm saying to you, it's great that you say you know the circle of fifths. Yeah, I know the circle of fifths. I know the circle of fifths. Great. How do you use it, though? That's my question. If I ask you the serious question, how do you use it? When you're thinking about what you're writing and you're playing guitar and you're choosing scales, are you using the circle of fifths to determine what scales you may or may not be able to use? Because if you have this memorized 100%, if this is memorized into your brain, like your street address and your phone number, then you will know this at your highest abilities and you'll play the best music and create your best music. You'll be the most creative when you know this the best you can possibly know it. Just look at someone who doesn't know this and just see how they create, and just notice somebody who does create with it, and you'll see a huge difference in just the way the music is created and how it sounds. This is a humongous tool. This is like a bunch of tools in your toolbox. So if for all you guys that are any kind of mechanic, carpenter, auto mechanic, transmission guy, whatever you're building, you're repairing machines, the more tools in your box. First of all, for you guys, you all want the biggest box with the most tools, right? That's what it's kind of all about. Whenever I go into my mechanic shop and I'm like, dude, your toolbox is the size of my shed. I mean, how much tools you got? I mean, how much money is in that box? And everybody will tell me somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of tools. Now, come on, guys, you need $100,000 worth of tools to fix a $20,000 car? Yes, you do, Mezzy. There's a billion tools out there. And you know what, Mezzy? The more tools I have, the easier my job is to fix that vehicle. Or the more tools I have, Mezzy, the nicer I can build your house. You want a crown at the top? You want me to put a castle layer at the top? I can't do that with a screwdriver and a hammer. And so guess what? This is the same way. Same thing. Hey, you want me to create records and songs? You guys want to make professional sounding music? You need to use the same tools that all the professionals are using. Birds of a feather flock together. So it's in your best interest to memorize this thing up and down. If I were you, I would be making photocopies of this thing and having a copy in every area of my life. I'd have one in my vehicle if I drove. If you don't drive, stick one in your mother or father's vehicle. I'd have one at my dinner table. I'd have one in my bedroom. I'd have one in the bathroom. I'd have one near the TV for commercials. I would have one of these everywhere, and I would be learning it up and down and then testing myself to make sure I know it all the way through. So that if somebody ever asks you, what key is that? What's in that key? Boom, you just shoot it right off. Here's the notes of the key. Here are the chords. Here's the Roman numerals. Here's the 1, 4, 5 for that key. Here is the 2, 3, and 6. Here is the 7. Here's the pentatonic scale for major and minor, and you know everything you could know. Here are all the diatonic modes for that particular key. There's a lot to know, and this helps you get started. It helps you keep track of what you're doing. And the biggest thing, which I've not told you yet, which is this. So if you made it through to this part of the video, I'm happy for you, because that's why I saved this little tidbit of information for you loyal listeners. The biggest thing, the biggest impact that this will have on you is the fact that you can see every single key at once. That is huge, because even after you've memorized it and know it up and down, like other professionals, you still will want to look at it when you're going to create, because even though you know all this information in your head, as I've said before, when you can see it, because music is a visual thing, it's art. Art is visual, okay? It's not like a lecture, it's visual. So when you can see all the keys at once and see the facts that are in every key, you can make better choices as to what scales you will use over the progressions you're playing or writing. And as the years go by and you become a wiser player, you will no longer need to look at this, because all this information that you see physically right now on paper, you will actually put together. You will see this whole piece of paper in your head when you've memorized it so well. You will see exactly this. You'll see all the keys at once, just like you see them here. There will come a day when you don't need to look at this every single time you need to pick a scale, because you'll have this memorized so well, there'll be no need to back it up by looking at it. You'll know this as if you've already invented it yourself. And when you get to that point where you know everything in these keys you're playing in, again, you don't really need to know what's in the keys you're not playing in. You're never going to use them. If you need a chord from one of those keys one day, you just go and use it. But what you need to know is how the key of C relates to the key of D, and how the key of C relates to the key of B flat. So I'm going to tell you some things that was, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to try to lend you some secrets to this circle of fifths that maybe you see some things, or maybe you discovered what I'm already going to tell you. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. Holding it, now that you got your page with you, I can take this down. Let me explain something to you guys. When you're playing the guitar and you look at this circle of fifths, it is very important to understand that I've underlined three key names here for you guys. You see them? I underlined A minor, D minor, and E minor. And the reason I did that is because, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to even go one step farther and to circle the one in the middle. Now, you don't do this. This is for the lesson purpose. But the one in the middle is circled because this is how it works. If I'm playing in the key of A minor, there's a very good chance that I can get away with using the D minor pentatonic scale. Let me clarify this. When I'm in the key of C major, whether I'm using the diatonic scale of A minor or the pentatonic scale of A minor, but especially, more commonly, I should say, when you're using the A minor pentatonic scale and you're going for the pentatonic vibe, there are times when you can make the D minor pentatonic scale work and the E minor pentatonic scale work. Because both of those pentatonic scales of D minor and E minor, all their notes are contained in the key of A minor. It's just a different group of 5 than what is in the A minor pentatonic scale. So the D minor pentatonic scale is D, F, G, A, C. All those notes are natural. They're all in the key of A minor. And in E minor, we get the E minor pentatonic scale. We get E, G, A, B, D. All those notes are also in the key of A minor, and we're only different by one note each. So A, C, D, E, G is really compared to E, G, A, B, D is really the same thing as saying, if you said A, C, D, E, G, and you went to A, E minor and started from the A, it would be A, B, D, E, G, right? So you're one letter off. D, F, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C. You're one letter off, right, from the A minor pentatonic scale with the F. So you're only, if you go side to side with the pentatonic scales, you go one side over, one way over left or right. From here, you go one over this way, one over that way. From here, you're one note different. From here, you're one note different. And that will work depending on what chords you're playing over and how long the chords are going around. So when you're cutting a solo and you've got measures and measures of chords going around and certain chords are being played for measures at a time, there is room and freedom to move to a different scale. But back to my original reason as to why you want to know this, you would never even be able to make that connection if, number one, you weren't looking at this piece of paper to show you that the connection is there. And number two, if you didn't have it memorized as strong as I was telling you you'll have it to get it memorized one day, as when you memorize it to the point where you know it up and down, you'll be able to see that in your own head. You'll say to yourself, you'll just know A, C, D, E, G, E, G, A, B, D. They're only one letter apart. D, F, G, A, C. Wow, A, C, D, E, G. You're going to see in your brain that they're one apart, even if you don't have this paper with you, as long as you've got this memorized. And that is the secret to understanding the circle of fifths, is to memorize it so well that you actually see everything on this paper in your head. And here's how you can prove if you can see this in your head without looking at the paper. Here's how you prove it. If you can put this piece of paper down and go to your head and say, you know what? I'm writing a song in this key of E minor. And I know the two pentatonic scales I can use that are on the sides of E minor. I know that I've got an A minor on the left side and I got a B minor on the right side. And if you don't know what's on left and what's right, then you still got some memorizing to do. So there's a lot of information being pumped out on this piece of paper that you need to be able to make yourself aware of. And so I just made you aware of one of those things, that you can use pentatonic scales on the left or right side of wherever you are playing. And if you're creative, there's other scales you can use too. There's a blues scale, right? So we figure out how to use the blues scale. Well, let's just talk real quickly about the blues scale. E, G, A, B flat, B, D is the E blues scale. Now, we know the scale has 6 letters and it's a B flat in it. And there's times when you're going to be able to use this E minor blues scale for other situations. So B flat and D also form a chord. So there might be other situations when you just might want to pop in a small, let's say you just use another scale from another key for 1 or 2 measures, just to put something quirky in there. We hear it all the time. Sometimes you'll hear a stop, something that left the key and comes back in. And the stop is how you get to, that'll be the way you get out of the key, because it'll stop the music. It comes back in with something else that sounds odd because it's from another key, and then quickly it goes back. So there, as you study, all I can tell you is as you study this and memorize it, because we're all different in our own ways and we all think differently, you will come up with discoveries of things you're noticing with this circle of fifths that maybe only you know or only you recognize. And you could try to leave a comment and share it with the world, but the world isn't going to always know what you're thinking, and that's what's going to make you your own original player. So the better you memorize all the information here, the better you take it in, the better you can process it and make it your own. You can customize this information and learn to use it in your own way so that your songs are recognizable to you. Every artist who's recognizable has some way that they use to make themselves recognizable. That is what builds their style. And so how you wind up seeing this and using this, for all of you original writers, it will definitely have an impact in the way you sound, and only for the better. It will only make you sound bigger, better, and wiser when you learn to use this as one of your many, many tools. There are a lot of different tools here. This is a tool, but this is like having a toolbox, small toolbox with some tools in it that's in a bigger box, because this isn't just one tool here. There's a lot of information here that can influence the way you play. You can look at the different key names and say, you know what? I'm in A minor, but I can use some stuff from E minor in my solo. I can branch off into E minor for another section for the bridge and come back to A minor because a lot of the chords are the same. As you memorize completely and wholeheartedly all this information, again, memorizing it to your personal best, not just memorizing it, but asking yourself, can I know this any better? Could I know it faster? If you've memorized it, but you're struggling to get to the answers, you still have room for growth. You have room for growth as far as memorizing this and understanding it until you know it as well and as fast as your address. And when you can spit this information out as fast as your own street address, then you've known it, you know it as your personal best. I don't think you'd know it any better than knowing your own address. But if you could say and recite this information, any piece of this information, any piece, as fast as your street address, you know you've reached your personal best when it comes to memorizing it. And then that would mean that you're understanding it at your best as well, which that means you're now ready to start reaching your personal best when it comes to creating music. This, my friends, is one of the most important things you could ever memorize for your musical journey. This will continue to help you grow and continue to set light bulbs off in understanding music theory as time goes on, pretty much forever on your journey of becoming a master player. Once you reach that level of mastery, there won't be much more to squeeze out of this thing. Just like when you wring out a shirt and get every drop of water out. You keep saying, you know what, I can get a couple more drops, I can get a couple more drops, and you do. But what happens? They get harder to get them out, right? The less of them, the less drops of water there are, the harder they are to get out. So the more you memorize this, the less you'll see in it as you begin to see everything you can possibly see. And your guitar world and your guitar way of playing will change rapidly as you begin to see these bells go off, because it will influence what you do with your guitar. And that's the truth about the circle of fifths. So I beg you guys to please memorize this thing as fast as you, as good as you can, not as fast as you can, but memorize it strong. Just stay on it. If it's a few months, it's a few months. If it's weeks, it's weeks. Just stay on this thing until you can explain it to somebody else. And that's also another way that you know it well. When you can explain this to someone else, like your spouse, your cousin, your brother, your friend, explain how this works to somebody else. The best thing to do would be to find somebody else who plays any instrument at all. It doesn't matter what instrument, because this is applicable to every single instrument. So just find anyone who plays a guitar, an instrument, and explain this to them. Now, the best scenario is to explain it to somebody who does not understand it already. And then when they're done listening to you, if they understand it, well, now you know exactly what you're doing, because you just got someone else to understand it the way you know it. And at the same time, you've now become a teacher. Now maybe you can go out and get earn some extra income playing guitar. Maybe that's a way for you to start earning some money. Maybe it's just a way for you to earn some part-time money at a music store. Maybe you need some Christmas gifts and you want to go get a part-time job teaching the basics to some kids. E, A, and G, switch the G chord, C chord, things like that. But when you understand this stuff, boy, does guitar get a lot easier to play, teach, and understand. So try to see if you can explain this to somebody else, because that would test your level of knowledge as to how well you really know this. If you get someone to know it but they have questions, well, you still need to understand this a little better yourself then. But if you explain this to somebody and they understand everything with no questions, then you know you are solid on this, and you're on your way to reaching that true personal best. Guys, that is the Circle of Fifths. If there's any questions you have, please leave them and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thank you for watching my channel. I hope you reach your personal best while watching my channel, and I'm glad to be part of it. I'm honored to be part of your guitar growth. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in another video.